I'm Andrew.
And I'm Angus from Cracka Wines. Today, 1st of March, what day is it, Andrew?
It's Penfolds Bin Day.
It is Penfolds Bin Day, the day that Penfolds bring out their famed bin series of wines.
Very much so.
And so this year we are looking at wines from 2008, 2009 vintage, because they have a mix of vintages in the Penfolds Bin Releases and challenging vintages, shall we say, Andrew?
Yeah, definitely. As far as it goes, 2008 in particular is a very hard vintage in South Australia.
Hot.
Yeah, it was hot. I think it was a 15-day record heat wave of over 35 degrees in South Australia.
So right at the wrong time,
Yeah.
right at the end of the season, when they wanted to put
this time. It was actually about this time. It was beginning of March. I think it was the 2nd that started. So, and that sort of time when the grapes are just starting to get ripe, it sort of threw up some really challenging problems.
I mean, the problem was, tank space is one problem.
Very much so.
Everything just ripened at the same time.
Yeah, it did.
Normally, the vintage, the whites come off early, and then some of the reds, and then they, some of them wait for, there can be a month in terms of, or even longer in terms of wine production. Whereas this time,
year, yeah.
they just absolutely, straight away they had. They needed to have all their tanks full straight away. Fruit coming in wasn't fresh, and some fruit just wasn't picked. They just left it because by the time there was tank space, mate, there's nothing they could do. The fruit was dead.
Yeah, so in other words, the biggest problem was that in 2008, unless you were really on the ball and you were like, hey, I'm going to go out there and pick some grapes, you ended up with just roasted fruit.
Yeah, and to be honest, we see a lot of that. I mean, you look at show judges, recently. What they're talking about is when they see these 08 wines, is just how many of them are not great.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
It really is a winemaker's vintage. And the question is, how are Penfolds going to go with this winemaker's vintage? So the first wine we have here is Penfolds Bin 138. So the Bin 138 is the Grenache blend, recent addition, 3-4 vintages.
And it's all Barossa Valley, this is too. And I'd say that as far as it goes, that, or at least in my opinion, that I think that Grenache Shiraz blends, or Grenache Shiraz Mourvedre blends, and Mourvedre Grenache blends for that matter, are probably some of the best blends in the Barossa.
Yeah, especially in warm vintages.
Especially in warm vintages, like 2009.
Exactly. Grenache likes warmer climates than Shiraz or Syrah. And so, the question is, with global warming, will Barossa become a Grenache region? Now, let's not talk about that because we'll get phone calls. In fact, I think I can hear my phone ringing now. But if we look at this wine here, it's a nice kind of open, fragrant kind of Grenache. It's pretty ripe. It's pretty big.
Very ripe, yeah. It's got that real berry character, I think, that comes from Grenache. That slightly confected, really juicy, red sort of Grenache fruit. I think you can really notice that here. And I quite like that sort of juiciness that comes from Grenache. The other thing about this is it's mainly all older oak. So you'll find that there's very little intrusive oak flavours going on in there at all.
Yeah, nice fruit, nice length. The Grenache it's like the Pinot Noir of Shiraz and Grenache. It really produces soft, subtle, kind of silky wines, and we really see that here. It's a pretty good example. It's probably not my favourite vintage of this particular wine, but it's got some nice fruit length. It's got some soft tannins. It's something that's probably going to open up a bit in the bottle.
Yeah, I've actually had this recently, and I had it after being open for about 4 or 5 hours at least.
Yeah.
And it drunk very well after that time.
Showed better than that, you reckon?
Definitely much better than that. Okay. Yeah, I actually had it over lunch, and it looked a lot
better
than
long
that.
lunch?
There's only one way in the wine industry. No, seriously though, it looked at this stage it looks actually quite closed when we just open up now. Yeah. When it starts to get a little more air in it, it starts to look much more juicy and Grenache dominant than anything else. I think that right now it's just like whoa, hey, this is super young.
It certainly is, but it's a good solid start, I think, to the bins for this year.
I really like this. I actually think that having tried these earlier, that this is actually one of my favourite wines of this release, just purely because it just shows this ripe, juicy fruit character, I think, which is just really what you want to be seeing in a young red wine.
Okay, so we already have Andrew's pick, and we've got another 5 wines to go. No, that's all right.
This is one of my picks, actually. There's a few wines in this lineup I really like, but that's one of my favourites.
Right, okay. Next wine, Bin 128, 2009, Coonawarra Shiraz. Obviously, the Coonawarra style, a bit different to the Barossa style.
Yeah, definitely. I think that if anything, I'd say that this is the one that Penfolds struggle with a bit over the years. I'd say that in good years, this is a lovely wine. It's a lovely, elegant mid-weight wine. But the biggest problem with it is it's a Coonawarra Shiraz, and it sometimes can just taste a little bit, I don't know, it's almost like a little bit austere in many ways, and a little bit leafy, and compared to the rest of the Penfolds wine, which are these big, juicy, chunky beasts, basically. This can sort of seem like it's sort of like not quite there.
Yeah, see, I don't mind that at all. I think sometimes when we're drinking Penfolds wines, people are thinking, wow, it's going to be this mouth-filling, rich,
that's true, definitely.
Juicy style. I actually really like that white pepper fragrance that you get from Kenosha. It's great, really good Kenoir Shiraz. And, you've got the likes of Wynn's Mike on that kind of thing. Can produce, really, aromatic, interesting wines. Bit of, nicely handled oak, nice and spicy. This is 2009 vintage, of course.
Yeah, look, this is a good release for it. There's no question about it. That's quite a mid-weight sort of peppery style. I mean mid-weight for Penfolds at least, and definitely has that peppery, cooler Coonawarra character going on there, which I think this could be really quite attractive. A lot of people sort of like it.
Yeah, actually, I would agree. I think there's going to be a lot of interest in this wine.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's probably the more savoury choice, if anything. If you're looking for a little bit more of a slightly less overt sort of style of wine, then you probably will like this.
14% alcohol as well, so it's probably a bit lower than alcohol than the wines we'll see, from now, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that this is going to live too. This is absolutely going to live.
Yeah.
It's got plenty of structure behind it.
Yes, indeed.
It's good. It's a good release.
So the next wine is the Bin 28. Bin 28 Kalimna. Now it's called the Kalimna Shiraz. Andrew, any thoughts about that?
Oh well, we don't want to start up too many fights here. But suffice to say that there's a little R next to that Kalimna up the top there, which means it is a registered trademark. Now the biggest controversy surrounding that is the fact that Kalimna is also a part of the Barossa. It's actually a town in the Barossa. So you now have Penfolds who are trademarking a town name in the Barossa, which has made a lot of people very unhappy, Angus.
A lot of people very unhappy. I mean, I guess, big business need to do what they need to do, but, we don't have anyone calling, naming them saying, I'm Coonawarra, I'm Hunter Valley. I mean, it's different, but I think now the wine is a South Australian Shiraz rather than necessarily, a Barossa Shiraz. It's something that certainly brings up questions in my mind.
Definitely. I mean, if you can imagine suddenly you start to trademark the word Bondi, for example, that's no different. If suddenly you can use the word Bondi anymore because they put it on the bottle of Shiraz, then there'd be some serious questions. No.
Anyway, I think enough
anyway,
in-depth stuff. Let's just look at what's in the glass.
That's exactly right. And for 2008, we were talking before about how it's a really warm, dry vintage and had that heat wave. This actually shows exactly what you want to be sort of seeing in this wine, Angus.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, it's a really, open, knit, generous style, as you'd expect from the vintage. Mm-hmm. Nicely worked oak in there, nice fruit in there.
Now, interesting enough, this vintage, like they've been moving to more and more over the years, actually has very little, if any, new oak, which is quite contrast when you sort of taste the wine. You realise there's a fair bit of oak in there. I guess that's just a plan they're sort of doing, is to try and introduce this more seasoned oak to try and get away from really oaky wines.
Yeah. A question for you, Andy. Tannins this wine, like there is actually there's a bit of grip there.
Yeah, definitely.
Does it have the fruit to carry those tannins?
I think it definitely has the fruit to carry those tannins. And having, again, been lucky enough to try this over lunch the other week, I definitely think that it has that the tannins has the fruit to sort of carry it all through. In fact, as it opens up, it tends to get more and more and more rounder, if anything, until it's actually like this big jammy berry sort of monster after a while.
Right.
Which I think is indicative of the vintage too. It ends up as quite a juicy sort of style of wine.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that as it starts to open up, you'll notice it even more. That also means is it's a pretty attractive wine.
Look, it is. I think it's attractive. I think it's open knit. I think it's quite ready to go.
Definitely.
So far, I still like the Coonawarra wine better because this is, as you said, it's quite jammy, this wine.
Yeah,
whereas that wine, that spicy lift, it's an interesting side of Shiraz, that kind of spicy lift.
Yeah, and I still like the Grenache actually the GSM, because I like that vibrancy of fruit and I like that, hey, this is what the Barossa is all about, that is going on with that wine. As opposed to these which are multi-regional, that is much more basically it's a sub-region, these days being the Barossa Valley region. And so that's really, you're tasting, hey, this is just fruit. This is exactly just what the old vine fruit is all about, the Barossa is all about.
Yeah, indeed. So next one, Penfolds Bin 407 Cabernet. Now 407, really 707 built a great name and they produced 407 because really, I think probably around 1990 would have been the first vintage.
Probably, and
really just to, there was a real desire to have a mid-range, Cabernet. And it's a wine that, It certainly creates controversy, I think. Vintage-wise, I think Foster's and Penfolds really have probably we know they've got some amazing Shiraz.
Definitely.
Heaps of amazing Shiraz, great contracts. I mean, Cabernet, they also own, the Block 42, which is like the oldest Cabernet in the world. So they've got good Cabernet, but they don't quite have the breadth, I guess.
No. And
again, in tough vintages, you often see that.
Yeah, and I'd actually say that this is probably one of my least favourite wines of this release. I tend to find that this just lacks a bit of freshness, and it's just a little bit warm and blah, if anything. Compared to, you sort of compare that to with the Shiraz, where it's just almost like this is what you sort of want to be producing from this vintage. This just seems like a little bit flat and a little bit hard. This is probably the one I like the least.
Look, I would have to agree with you. I think that. There's some perfume there, some pretty kind of cassis fruit there from probably some early picked fruit, but then the mouth is just ungiving. You want a wine, even a young wine that's going to live forever. You want to give you something. You want to go back for a glass. Look, I've probably had enough of that now, and I've only had a sip. It's certainly got structure, and it'll certainly age.
Yeah.
Will it get better? Is there enough fruit to balance the oak and the and the tannins? Look, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's just as simple as that. But then again, I tend to find that this is a wine for me personally that I find it can be a little bit polarising.
Yeah.
That at times I've really loved it, and in other ones I've really just not been loving it anyway. So but I guess that's just what this sort of style is all about, and this is what Penfolds wines are always going to be about.
Yeah,
too.
That's true. So now it's time to really, I guess, hit the big guns.
It is.
And there are two wines this year at the top end of the tree.
Yeah, and both are good. I like both these ones.
Okay. We can't all go for long lunches.
No, we definitely can't.
But so 2008 Bin 309, Baby Grange, blah blah blah. Shiraz Cabernet blend. I mean, the great thing about the Great Australian Shiraz Cabernet blend is that Shiraz provides beautiful fruit weight and kind of plushness. Then Cabernet just brings in that structure, which can be great wines. And, some of the, in Bordeaux, the 1700s, late 1700s, they were blending Shiraz and Cabernet because they wanted to give...
more recently than that too.
Please, Bordeaux wouldn't lie. Bordeaux wouldn't lie.
No.
But, it's a classic blend. It's a classic Australian blend. Really, no one does it anything like we do.
No.
389 for some people, and a lot of people, this is still, a cellar staple. It's a wine they can't do without. They buy every year, independent of vintage. Question is it good value at $65 is retail, recommended retail?
I guess value is a relative proposition when you're talking about Penfolds wines there, Angus. But look, I'd say that there's no question here that I found it quite miraculous that I actually managed to pull something as good as this out of the vintage.
Yep.
I was just like, wow, this actually tastes like a classic Bin 389 should and does. And it has the structure and power that you'd really expect. I mean, it's very young.
It's ripe,
still
though.
Very ripe.
It's a really ripe.
There's no question about that.
Example
It's a big ripe 389. There's no question there. But at the same time, I think that it's as far as exactly what people want in a 389, and this is pretty much on the ball. There's lots of tannins, there's lots of flavour, there's lots of that Penfoldian sort of richness to it that I think that people are like, that is what 389 should taste like, and I think it's here in this wine.
Yeah, really nice tannins there as well. Like, they're there and they're kind of chewy, but they don't overtake the palate, and that's what, great wines, doesn't matter where you're coming from, that's what they're like. They've got fruit, but the tannins, they fit nicely, and the tannins, they don't, smash you in the face, unless it's Barolo or something like that. They're there. It's got some nice length, attractive wine, some oak in there, American oak in there, obviously. But look at the colour, it is black as night. It tastes black and night. It's a pretty ripe version, but I would think that your traditional Penfolds consumer who drinks this stuff every year
is going to love it.
Would be pretty happy with this one.
Yeah, I reckon so too.
Great length too, like it just kind of sings along.
It definitely, it tastes like you'd imagine and you want it to be.
That's right. So the last wine, the new release, the new Penfolds release, hasn't been seen before. Hopefully will be seen again. The Bin 150 Graham and Angus Shiraz. Now, Andrew, I didn't go to your 12-course lunch, so I can't tell you about this wine, but please, fill us in.
Well, unlike some of the other ones, and worse besides the Bin 138 at the front there, this is actually...
Before, what's your favourite wine so far, out of where we're going?
So far it's probably a tie between the Bin 138 and the Bin 389 actually. Okay. I like both those wines a lot, and they're the wines that if I was going to be choosing drinking, I'd be choosing either of those.
I'm on the 1, 2, 8, 3, 8, 9 spectrum, but keep going.
No, that's okay. That's good. Anyway, as I was saying, compared to all the rest of the wines, all of them are actually multi-regional. So they basically draw them from all over South Australia. Besides the Bin 138, which is obviously just all from the Barossa Valley, this instead comes from one pure sub-district, which means they're not actually a declared sub-region yet, but at least it is sort of indicative that it's going to come from a certain part. And this comes from a part of the Barossa where it is quite renowned for making some lovely rich Shiraz, and that's Marananga. And I think that you can really see this lovely blue fruits and excellent perfume going on here. And again, I think that if the vintage was pretty kind to it in as far as the fruit that's come off this.
When I taste this wine, actually I haven't tasted it. When I smell it, the first thing I smell is Penfolds.
Yeah.
It just reeks of Penfolds Shiraz. It actually smells a bit. It's actually Saint Henri would be I think the closest thing to this in terms of traditional styles.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a bit more American oak, but look, it's got really kind of intense fruit. It's not as open and as fleshy as the stuff you get from the Bin 28 stuff. And actually reminds me of when, Penfolds was almost all Barossa. This is what it kind of reminds me of.
Yeah.
It's, generous and open and pretty, for the vintage, it's pretty bloody good.
I think that this is a really smart wine. I think that as far as pulling something out from the vintage and showing what really could be shown from the vintage, this is right in the groove. It smells, and I'm happy that Penfolds did something like this too, because at least it's sort of, I had talking before about how the whole Kalimna controversy. This actually is sort of going, hey, we are serious about vineyards and we are serious about sub-regions. We want to make something that's indicative of where it comes from.
And it's kind of an each way wine in terms of, like, you could buy that and neck it now.
Yeah, definitely.
Within a sitting and pretty much enjoy it. Probably wake up with a bit of a headache. But
it depends if the whole drink the whole bottle
itself.
itself.
Of course. It's not the only way. But, I think this will please your Penfolds drinker.
Yeah, definitely.
No end. I think. And there's some nice length, some structure there. It's going to live. It's probably not, it's not like the 06 Saint Henri or something like that, where it was really, that was
spot on.
Awesome.
But at the same time, I think there's certainly a lot of attractive things about this wine, and I think that anyone, you can sort of show them and go, look, this is what Barossa Valley Shiraz in the Penfolds styles tastes like, and yeah, right up there.
I'd agree. So, best wine for tasting?
I don't know. Again, I think the 389 is pretty classic. The Bin 138, obviously, I like a lot, and this, I'm still sort of torn on which one I decide to go with a favourite with. I mean, if I was actually choosing to drink any of these right now, I'd probably drink this.
Yep.
All three, more than 138.
Yeah, I'd say 128 for value, 150 for buy. If you like it, both kind of classic in the Penfolds style. So there we go. 1st of March. Okay, Sydney Day. Cracka Wines.